welcome everybody to Poetry Street, the room without a roof, where every voice is heard. I am hosting by myself, not really, but by myself here, because Chip has to be away today for family and personal reasons. I am delighted that Claire Lundberg and Susan Dingle, all the way from Washington, are helping Washington State, that is. They're both helping us today, and along with a little bit of assistance from Mike Gary. And we usually start these proceedings with a land welcome. Chip usually reads it. I usually massacre these beautiful tribal names, but I will do my best. New York City, Long Island has always been a gathering and trading place for many indigenous peoples. We acknowledge that we are guests on this land. Poetry Street and our work in this area of Long Island is situated on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Lenape, who are the original caretakers. Also the Canarsie, the Shinnecock, Montaukett, the Rekgawani, the Munsee, and Haudenosaunee. I apologize. We acknowledge and respect the many indigenous peoples who live on this land and continue to make ongoing contributions to this area. So welcome to the people who are here in person and the people who are on Zoom. I don't know if I said I'm Maggie Bloomfield. I'm so happy to be here today. I want to thank you for joining us, and I really want to thank the Riverhead Library, the staff, and everybody who have allowed us, invited us to have this wonderful venue. If those of you who are not familiar with the history of Poetry Street, we've been around for some time. We were begun by Miss Susan Dingle, who's right up there, and Bubby Brown, a wonderful Riverhead poet who also cannot be here with us today. It was begun as a jumpstart project for East End Arts, and we've been going for 9 years. For a number of years, we were at the Blue Duck Bakery. The bakery sadly closed. Then there was some sort of pandemic thing that happened. It kind of disrupted things, but we kept going on Zoom. And now we are back with this fantastic hybrid thing where we can come no matter where we are, and where we are also welcome to actually come here and touch flesh, which is amazing. Today we have some fantastic features. I'm going to introduce them in a second, but I do want to just give a shout out to Nancy Kouros, who is the owner of the Blue Duck Bakery and who hosted us for so many years, 7 years, I think. Our features today, well, it is Women's Month. This is the month for women. So men, take note if you have. We're having 2 readers today, and then that will be followed by an open mic. Those of you who are here in person, if you haven't signed up for the open mic and you would like to read your own poem or a poem by somebody else, please feel free. And those of you on Zoom, I'm pretty sure Susan has already instructed you to let her know through chat. We're going to have a lovely afternoon in spite of some nasty weather outside, and this is a very happy event. So we are going to start with a wonderful poet I heard online a couple of months ago. I was knocked out, and we just had to have him as a feature. He's going to be presenting up there. Austin Alexis is the author of the chapbooks Lovers and Drag Queens, a small press review, pick of the month, and For Lincoln and Other Poems, both from Poets Wear Prada Press. A full-length collection is Privacy Issues, Broadside, Lotus Press, 2014, Naomi Long Magic Poetry Award. His poetry has appeared in Barrow Street, The Journal, The Pedestal Magazine, The New Verse News, Hawaii Pacific Review, Plath Profiles, Patterson Literary Review, Poets for Paris, Local Gems, we're all pretty familiar with them, and elsewhere. His fiction is also widely punished, not punished, published, hopefully not punished. Austin has received support from the Bread Loaf Writers Conference, Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, the Helene Wurlitzer Foundation of New Mexico, and Vermont Studio Center. He is taught at Nassau Community College, Long Island University, and other colleges. He lives in New York City, but he's right here in Riverhead with us today. Please welcome a big, loud, noisy welcome for Austin Alexis.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Riverhead Library, Poet Street, Maggie, Chris. I'm sorry I haven't met you in person, but thank you for having me. And thank you, audience, for being here. Okay, so I'll start with a poem that is inspired by some current events. And when you hear the poem, you'll know the current events I'm talking about. High altitude airborne object. Small white thing floating across a massive black sky. Bright light sliding down the heavens. Space pedal, I survey you, follow when you are visible, sniff for you among stars when you disappear even for 10 minutes. Where do you travel when you glide out of my sight? You become more beautiful when you are gone from me. I, who dislike using the word beauty, am compelled to employ a number of terms to paint you. Beauteous object, pale satellite, roaming attraction, fine, shiny item. I contemplate leaving Earth permanently in pursuit of you. Watching you isn't enough. I'm tempted to transform into you, space pedal, the way the human strives to morph into the divine. This poem is inspired by my trips to Long Island and also to Fire Island. And I remember talking to my sister, Joan, who's here, about this incident when it happened to me years ago. Facing a buck. You are keen to see what I'll do next. In a forest, intricate greenery, spruce trees sticking out their rifle arms, you station your blunt head to face my rib cage. I stand glaring at you, my stance showing an accurate calculation of my defense, but also emphasizing my vulnerability. From the distance, the sounds of the sea. Its wave clashes on autopilot, battles without end. We will hold these positions for a minute that resembles 2 hours. Heavy as perseverance, your antlers weigh you down. Too fearful to allow fear to show, I trot away in my imagination, but stayed trained on you in the real life of this dell. For the first time, I understand the concept of eternity. I live in the East Village, and I don't know if any of you here live or have lived in the East Village, but for years we've had doves. I hear doves every morning and every evening. So this poem comes out of that. Urban dove, calling over many backyards, your voice is visible in gray twilight air. Then your coos fade, but stay current, like mist that's felt more than it is seen. Even in silence, the imprint of you rings out, sad, sad as chanted Latin. You fly away, but are never gone. An echo of you, a faint perfume remains among fences, corroding bird baths, flagstone walkways. You are an echo from the past, from the delicate present, from an outline of the future, gray and indistinct as fog. I have a phone that is supposed to tell you who's calling, but sometimes it just says name unavailable.
Right.
So this poem comes out of that, and my friend Joe, who I think is here today, knows all about this particular problem I have with my phone. Sometimes he comes up as name unavailable, and I don't answer if I don't know who it is. Name unavailable. My telephone screen refuses to give your name. Like a friend in an Ibsen play, your voice drop by without advanced announcement. You are the rat that leaped in several huffs across an evening avenue, landed on my sneakered foot, stayed 3 seconds, then sprinted into invisibility. You are the forest fire no botanist predicted. Who are you? Where are you when you're not ringing, dribbling your ghostly charisma into my landline, my apartment, the guarded corners of my life? You enjoy burning through my safety box of quiet. Your purpose is to chew my peacefulness into pieces, teaching me not to ignore the world, its slapstick of chaos, the hurly-burly that will nourish me in the end.
Nice.
Thank you. And this is one of my social protest poems that comes out of the many instances of police misconduct, you might say brutality, that we've had over the last few years. He said, I can't breathe, he said and said, his body stretched out, plank horizontal over the soil of graveyards, over his legacy of black dirt. What ears, what deafness refused to hear his words? Not imperative, not interrogative, but merely declarative. I can't breathe. Law enforcement watched, guarded, hovered in Mona Lisa quiet, silent as a smile. So-called neutrality took actions it pretended were necessities. Fake neutrality wore the mask of good while hiding the face of harm. Cops distorted the dissonant noise of a person gasping for air into a scribbled sketch, the background of a landscape, a volume-saturated terrain they didn't intend to hear. This poem is inspired by the opera Madame Butterfly. I don't think you really need to know the opera to understand the poem. I think whatever narrative threads you need are in the poem. And it's a persona poem, meaning it's written in the first person from a person who is obviously not the poet. And I had a talk with the poet and editor Roxanne Hoffman a few weeks ago, and we were talking about this opera, and that partly inspired the poem. My mother really loved this opera, and I remember hearing it a lot as a teenager when I lived at home. Madame Butterfly, I am about to take the life he has already crushed out of me. I am about to cast forward into the knife, the sword, the whatever it is that will kill what my lover's unfaithfulness has already murdered. Kneeling, I tip frontward as my petite breast bell in the same direction. Each empty vessel sweaty and ready for my finale. The end of my naivete, this interval of time when I could be rescued. He has the ability to do that magic. And yet he'll waver and wait until the gong of my death to rush to my chamber, bogged down with his own tears, as if he's the victim. By then, I'm sure I will already be without my mind, my infant, or my life. Love will be the end of me. Only love could have saved me. And I'll end with this poem called Roommates, which is from my book, Privacy Issues, published in 2014 by Broadside Lotus Press. And it was published in an anthology before it was published in this book, an anthology edited by Roxanne Hoffman of Poets Wear Prada and one or two other people. Roommates. People write poems about lovers, but rarely about roommates. Take the roommate who reeks of revenge because his roomer won't be his lover. Or the one who is a Blanche Dubois, wearing her cravings like scarves that strangle, sharing living quarters with desire that's disaster. Maybe all roommates are lovers after all, even if they avoid the most accidental touch and seem peaceful and chaste as a chamber of medieval sculpture. Underneath the tedious quiet, their emotions, their psyches tangle like limbs beneath sheets, fleshy and theatrical. as porn. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks a lot for awesome collective. Oh my goodness, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. Whoa. Okay. Oh my.
Thank you.
Oh, and I can't wait for you to come out and actually be here in the flesh at some point, so we can all have a party together, a human fleshy party.
I'd like that.
So, okay. So next up, and by the way, when you respond to the poets here, we encourage you to make a lot of noise. You know, you can stamp your feet, you can scream. We haven't been kicked out of the library yet, so just go for it. Our next feature is somebody who I came in contact with when I was in graduate school. She came in at the behest of Julie Sheehan, a good old friend and mentor to me, and read for us. And I never forgot it. And it's taken a long time to catch up with you for Poetry Street, but I'm delighted you're here. Kathryn is author of 2 poetry collections, Reports, a finalist for the Midwest Book Award, and Losing the Moon, as well as the Nutcracker Teacher Resource Guide, a guide to K-12 poetry instruction. Her work has appeared in various journals, including Slate, The Progressive, Cimarron Review, Provincetown Arts, Seattle Review, Hanging Loose, among others, as well as anthologies. We begin here, Poems for Palestine and Lebanon, The Light of City and Sea, Adventures in the Spirit, and the recent Japanese anthology, 36 New York Poets. Kathryn's awards include fellowships from MacDowell, Yaddo, Blue Mountain Center, Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, Ragdale, Vermont Studio Center, and the Cummington Community of the Arts. She lives in Sag Harbor, an East End poet, yay! She lives in Sag Harbor, and for more about her, she will undoubtedly post her website. I hope so. Please, please help me welcome the beautiful Kathryn Levy.
Thank you, Maggie. I remember when I met you at Julie's workshop. Julie seems to bring a lot of us together. She's a great resource for poetry in the East End and throughout Long Island. I am so delighted to be here. I love listening to Austin's poetry, which I'm sorry, Austin, I didn't know before, but I will read it now. And I'm delighted that one of my oldest and dearest friends is zooming in from Richmond, the incredible poet, Susan Hankler. Read her work. I first met her at VCCA, Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, which we've heard quite a lot about here today. I was amused and interested that Austin read a poem about a confrontation with a buck. For those of you who don't live here, there are a lot of confrontations between the deer and the human beings here. And this is that conflict from another point of view. It's called they. They scare us with headlights. They swerve into our bodies. They surround us with houses and 10-foot-high fences. They attach words to our panic as if we were human. They clap their hands, shoot their rifles. They move a mountain of dirt in the middle of the forest, which isn't a forest, not anymore. Not anymore. They sign petitions against us. Hundreds of letters scrawled on the pages. They have called the forest the final chapter. They plant forest flowers. They insert the new trees and have dug a hole where the pond used to be and filled it with water. carried hundreds of miles by the water sellers. They put up a sign, "Beware of the deer," a black figure leaping across a bright nowhere. They stand over our bodies. It is such a shame. And shake their heads and turn the locks on the doors. At night when they're sleeping or trying to sleep, we peer in their windows. What is coming next? They don't provide answers because we can't ask the questions, and neither can they. They just get in the cars and turn on the headlights and watch us watching them in our fear. So from they to we, this is called magicians. Magicians. We are walking through windows. We are playing with air. We are heating it up, but learning to cool it all down. We are practicing wisdom on a 10-inch screen in a bolted room and sending a message to God and his heavens. We can no longer believe. We are herding millions of other magicians into the schoolrooms to learn to be better and giving them tests and carefully making our judgments. We are passing by the graveyard gardens where every year more stones appear, but we're inscribing the morals, a meaningful life, a life of adventure. We are eating our ice creams, examining our bellies, and wearing contraptions to hide all that flesh. We are disappearing, but oh, very slowly, until one day we are hurtling through windows. Please hold my hand. It is all I have left. We are moments, then we're not. Was that blood on those pages? Never mind. We are scattered. In January 2017, a moment I'm sure all of us will remember, the beginning of the Trump years, the Parish Art Museum in Southampton held a wonderful gathering called Story Circles. I don't know if some of you participated in it, but they asked poets to come sit in circles with other people, listen to what people were thinking at that moment, and write poems that came out of it. I was pretty dubious about this because this is not the way I write poetry. But there was one woman there who said something in an anguished voice that really stuck in my mind. She said, "I'm afraid for my daughter." And in the coming month, as I went to a number of protests, I'm an activist as well as a poet, I kept thinking of her line, and it led to this poem, which is called The Protest. The Protest. I'm afraid for my daughter. I'm afraid for the air my daughter keeps breathing or struggling to breathe. I am afraid for myself. At night, I can hear them, the huge missiles hissing. Late at night, I can see him, the president signing millions of orders, his hand like a robot's, the ground sinking beneath him. I'm afraid of the gases bubbling in the cesspools. Are we all falling in? My skipping daughter cries, "Mommy, can't we go to the circus?" I weep in my coffee like a clown. This poem is called "What Are You Doing?" A question I frequently ask myself, as my husband can attest. What are you doing? I'm the witch in the mirror who was born to destroy only myself. I pound at the glass and take out warrants, injunctions. I am a child on the beach, cantering like a horse, a white stallion released from being a middle-aged woman in a room, planning the vacations, stopping the papers. I am the attendant at the death of my world. I clear the bedside, set down the potions. I am a monster. I flail at that order and rip up the papers, make my own news. This evening, a woman blew up her body at 244 Implacable Harbor, then tidied up after the explosion, begging the reporters, please don't print a word. The reporters laugh. We don't print anymore. We make the explosions echo and echo all night. I am the receiver of some unbearable pounding as I lie stiff in this bed. Really, what are you doing this week? I am trying to learn how to sleep. These poems I'm reading come from a new manuscript, which is looking for a publisher. It's called Whatever Is Left, and it concerns the intersection of aging and living in a world that appears to be imploding. And there's a dystopian element in the poem and this in the book, and this poem is one of the dystopian poems that is oddly centered on apples. There's a wonderful backstory about that, but I won't tell it here. It's called The Story of Apples. The Story of Apples. They peered at the apples in the Apple Museum, or the half-remembered pictures of apples, and whispered about the apple pickers, slow-moving, unfearing, who loaded the cartons onto the wagons and spoke only of things they could make with apples, apple pies, apple puddings, as if nothing else mattered, and curled in their beds, their hunger assuaged, their doors still unbolted. One said, I would love just a taste of an apple. One claimed they were sour, and sometimes they rotted even before the pickers could reach them. At the end, the apples shriveled while growing. At the end, the pickers fought over remnants. With nothing to gain, the marauders killed every picker and were killed in their turn by the pourers of concrete who bulldozed and bulldozed the stinking husks of the apples. It's more efficient now that we only eat one another, or that's what one chanted, still stroking the painted surface of an apple. Red, red. They created a song for their mourning and a god for their terror, the implacable god of the apples. He wants no one to know what is coming next. No, said the father, rubbing his eyes. I think he is finally sick of these battles. All he wants is no one. This poem is called The Beginning. As T.S. Eliot wrote, in my beginning is my end, and in my end is my beginning. The beginning. I will live in the basement. I will dance without clothes, never again needing the others. I will climb to the roof when only the moon is watching and roll on the shingles, hurting my body back to more life. I won't eat anymore, or I'll gorge on wine and the smell of the lilacs that withered last year and somehow never came back to life. They say that winter was simply too harsh. I will learn to live on simply, discarding the questions. And when I can't, I'll still try not to answer. I'll become like a ghost who can't stop wandering and wandering, who has stories to tell beyond all these phrases. I will title this month The Beginning of Silence, though I've never known one moment of silence. I will rise like a wave into that heaven and try not to curse as I do what I must, what I always have done. I will chant and I'll chant of the crash. Last year at this time, or a little bit before this time, I was lucky enough to be at Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, a place that has been crucial to my life as a writer, and where I first met Susan Hankla. I don't want to say in what year. And I was having a great time. You know, I was immersed in my work. There were interesting people. The daffodils were coming up. And then the Ukrainian war began. And I really was plunged into despair and a sense of paradox, because here I was in this place where I was being cosseted and doing exactly what I wanted, and then looking at the scenes of terror on the computer. And this poem came out of it. It's called At the End of the World. At the end of the world. She keeps washing the dishes. They have to be clean for the dinners of tomorrow. And watching explosions in some distant country as a mama screams, no, and where is my baby? In the rubble of another world that has ended, but only on TV from 8 to 9:30. She whispers she is tired of watching explosions and rubbing at the dishes that never stay clean, and eating the dinners, trying to make conversation, when all that she wants is to dream a new story, a completely new story, without any explosions, though she still isn't burned by the bombs or the mama who tears at her face each night when she only longs for a sleep. For sleep, it's the end. So we have to get up and try to start searching for the why and the how, and again, no answer. So I'm going to end with two poems from this book. There's a lot of continuity between this book and whatever is left. In a way, I feel they're the same book, just two volumes of the same book. I had the great luck, and it was lucky, to spend many years teaching poetry in the New York City public schools. It was one of the two greatest things that happened in my life. One of them is writing poetry, the other one is teaching poetry to kids. And I had a little throwaway exercise I would use with my kids called the absolute truth. It was a way of teaching them how to lie their way into the truth, which I think all poets learn how to do, right? So this is my absolute truth poem. It's called The Absolute Truth. I was raised in a school, in the basement of a school. My mother was a witch who fed me chalk for breakfast. She made me learn to love it. Or I knew nothing else, so I came to hate eating. I have a home on Venus. I am fond of the heat. All my lovers are tall, 6'3". They bend down when they kiss me, or they lift me up. I'm as light as a no one. We have no seasons, but I always need change. So I dream new lovers. I travel to the earth. I am heading to see the final glaciers before they melt, and the sea turtles on the last island they can breed. I've lived 200 years, but I've found the new ointments. My skin is glowing, my body still supple. Last night, one of the lovers crawled into my bed. I need to dig deeper. He thinks I don't love him, and he's right. I dwell in an egg in my home on Venus, and all that world outside, it is chalk. So this is the last poem I'm going to read, and it's the last poem in this book and the title poem of the book. It's called Reports. Reports. A child trudges home from school. It's the end of a day. So much has been slowly accomplished. Through each dream of a day, people are trudging. The child throws a rock at a glass, and inside the prison he cries for no one who comes. They are locked away. In the TV set, someone is singing. Someone is beating a huge drum and flailing through the frantic crowd. Move faster, sing louder. It's the end of a day. We need to wake up and do our work, reviewing all these days to make the reports that no one will read. Father says, I have read too much, and somehow choose our only choice. Begin. Thanks.
Oh my goodness, you did it to me again, Kathryn. Let's hear it for Kathryn, first of all. And for the two wonderful poets that have featured for us today. You know, it's such a privilege to be part of this venue. I can't. I can't. We're going to go into the open mic now. There are a few, we have a few rules. Everybody hates that word, but we have them because we have to. We ask that you please don't read any longer than 3 minutes. You can do anything you want during those 3 minutes. But at 3 minutes and about 30 seconds, the hook comes out, okay? And that's because we want to keep the action rolling and make sure that everybody gets to read, because we have quite a crowd today. So we're going to alternate a little bit between the people up here and the people in this room. And Claire, who are we starting with?
We're starting with Susan Dingle to announce the people online.
Okay.
And we generally do 3 poets from Zoom and then come back to the room, but I just have to change the view so the people
right.
in the room can see our poets online.
Sounds like a good idea.
I can remember how to do anything on 14 different computers.
Ladies and gentlemen, Claire Winter.
So Susan, you're unmuted. If you'd introduce the first poet from Zoom and then let us know who will follow.
All right, so do you want me to introduce the first 3 and just have one and then back to you, or how do you want to do it?
Just the first one and say who's next after, to be followed by.
Very good. So our first poet from Zoomland is MJ Turek, to be followed by MT Pariti.
Terrific, thank you. Thank you, Kathryn. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Susan, for filling in for Chip, who I miss. And thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Kathryn. What a wonderful group. So, and I hate to have to run, but I'm gonna run, but I'm so delighted to read first. I'm celebrating Dog Speak. 24 poems written in a 24-hour poetry marathon, all in the voice of dogs. And I'm supporting North Shore Animal League, the world's largest no-kill shelter. And thank you, Susan, because she played Poetry Roulette and had to pick a number from 1 to 24, and she picked 5, one of my favorites. Kisses, always kisses. You know how much I love you, adore you, want you, need you, can't imagine my life without you. I love you. Kisses, always kisses, no nips, no bites, no fights, no grudges held over heads and shoulders, released before night falls with kisses, always kisses. We don't always agree on bath time, on vet time, or trim my nails time, but we always get along. You say you know what's best, and I trust you to let me have my way now and then, always with kisses, always kisses. You toss and turn crumbs left over from the day, clogging dream canals, and I cuddle close, closer. Hugs, hugger, you smile. I offer kisses, always and always. You accept all the kisses I've got, and that's a lot. Kisses, always kisses. Thank you.
And now we'll have MT Pariti to be followed by Kelly J.
Hey everyone, I'm MC Pariti. I just want to thank Maggie and Susan for hosting this. It's my first time at Poetry Street, the room without a roof. I'm excited to announce that I am starting a new project, a monthly periodical called The Scene, that is about highlighting and connecting exactly this, different open mics and poetry scenes around Long Island. So submissions are open. I asked ahead of time and they said I can put the link in the chat. So it's in the chat if you want to check out the website. And I will keep my poem short because I used some time to talk about the scene. So thank you so much. This is called Pining, when the mind defeats the heart. Thoughts intruding, I've been brooding. Lights, camera, action, start the shooting. Mind is looting, stealing peace. Riots in my mental streets. Unruly crowd, my heart competes and tries to fight it back with beats. Not loud enough to drown them out. They only start to chant. In unison, begin to shout, riled up into a rant. Latching onto rhythm, they won't let go of my mind, so myself it starts to schism, multiplicity of kind. Lost in all directions, don't know what I'm gonna find. Now I'm split up into sections and can't catch up from behind. They're carrying infections like the chills right down my spine. I can't seem to make corrections, there's no getting out of line. I'm stuck with stomping feet, getting caught in these stampede. Want to take my seat, but can't get away from need. It compels me all the pumping, beating beat of failing heart, and it tells me that they're lumping all my feats in barely art. You can't sell the trauma dumping, people picking it apart. What the hell, the bomb is trumping, blowing up my brand new start. Finished from beginning, couldn't get off of the line, and you'd think that I were kidding, but this isn't the first time that I've had to do the bidding of the things inside my mind, so I'll sit and go on spinning and waste away while here I pine. Thank you so much for letting me read. Thank you for letting me share the scene with you. Looking forward to hearing what the rest of everyone has to say.
And Kelly Powell.
Well, big on my screen now. Hello. Hi, everybody. Gladys. I see Tony. Yes, I wanted to come live, but the weather. Live is the theme. I love Zoom though. It works. So thank you for all the wonderful readers, and thank you, Maggie and Susan and Chip, who is somewhere, for this wonderful series. And all right, the thanking is taking my 3 minutes, but the first line is the title. I had a discussion with Russ about this earlier. He doesn't like that when people do that, but I'm doing it. So it's called, the first line is the title. On Namibia nights when sleep can be impenetrable, and you are drunk on life and painting on margin becomes too much, and wine is not your only friend, and no one answers the phone, and ghosts of Christmas past have come to you in large draughts like bloated boats wrapped in the marina, and you just want to make coffee and do the dishes in the sink, but they're screaming like an infant and children everywhere in need. You may come to conclusions or shatter illusions, but the sun will still rise and then set because she got used to the routine. The 10 of hearts playing on the radio, not the queen, but the 10. And you open a fresh carton of eggs and one of them is broken. Even though you checked like you always do at the market, though we don't get that time back at the end. And you break 3 more to make a birthday cake or a cake for no reason, spending eternity clinging to the thing that kills you in a fractured fairy tale, never wasting time or impolite or misspent a dime. But did you sell your soul for love? Did you have a soul to sell by the time the devil met you at the crossroads, across from the train station in East Northport? Or did you give it away in millions of shards of nostalgia, trying to relive summer nights in your first car, a speedy red convertible, risking all those lives for a thrill and a memory, your first love, first broken heart, bonfires of broken bottles? Are we still alive when our soul dies? Just celebrate this day and this life where we did not come back as an insect or a hummingbird or a humpback whale to be crushed or flitter or wash up on the beach in despair. The cherry blossoms are in full bloom today. A gift from the island of Japan that honor our dead warriors. My grandfather being one of them. They're down to a staff of 3 from 20 in these difficult times. The years spinning down like a top, the thing you will most dearly want to keep, falling through your fingers like sand did the first time. The end. Did I unmute myself? I did.
You did indeed.
Thanks. Have a great one. I'm still here. I'm just gonna mute me.
I already made a mistake. I should have mentioned the name of our next poet on Zoom, so as not to surprise her. Gladys Henderson, if you would like to be next. And then Pameletta.
We can take people from the rooms, it's just
Okay,
here now.
Now, okay,
to the room from the Zoom.
the room, from the Zoom to the room. We don't have a lot of people signed up in the room today, but plenty on Zoom. But we will begin with someone who will be featuring here next month, along with our Claire, and that is Bill Batcher.
I'm going to read 2 short poems. Next month is April, so this is my poem for April, a sonnet. It doesn't break a sweat or make you wear too many woolen overcoats and hats. Perhaps galoshes for a day, but that's the end of it. It doesn't seem to care if it is not first or last. With 30 days, it is an average month, and none of these are for parading flags. April agrees to bring us Easter morn, but does not raise a fuss if March usurps that holy day. Its nights are not too short and not too long, though even equinox does not belong on its grid. There isn't much to say, yet in its quiet way, with softened voice, I find the days of April middling nice. And my second poem is April is poetry month, so this is a poet's lament. A poet's life is not a happy one. He wakens pen in hand ere rising sun and writes with passion, eloquence and grace, with imagery and rhythm and a trace of pathos, till the finished work in whole can stir the spirit and renew the soul. But publishers would be the first to say that no one buys a book of poems today. But if he wrote a harlequin romance or fantasy or how-to book, his chance of ever getting published would increase. But poetry? Not till pigs fly, at least. And so tonight, dear friend, send up a prayer for struggling, starving poets everywhere, that readers once again begin to see the riches that derive from poetry. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Wow, it's so great to have everybody here and have access to everybody. Next up is somebody we're so glad to have back in our Poetry Street family, Julie Scar.
Yeah, Julie, I love you.
I love you more. Okay, so this is a short poem called "The Water Within Us Will Carry the Weight of Our Love." Wild-eyed, we take our love to the trees. We abandon our sense of reprise. We create an altar to give thanks to what we left behind. We strive for only peace. We plant the seeds of growth. Wait in each change of season for their arrival above ground. We listen for the wind, for coming rain. We call ourselves by names other than the ones we have been given. We learn to define ourselves without words. We leave our mark of passion. We leave even what we cherish. We return to a type of softness. We abandon everything for magic. Thank you.
And now we'll go back to Zoom.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Julie. Our next reader is Gladys, followed by Parmaletta.
Illumination. Oh, how sweet the silence of heaven's perfectly crafted stars, flawless, obedient, their rainbow of colors prism of the Creator's voice. Oh, how sweet the sound of heaven's light when it descends with redemption into this beautiful, brief life. Oh, how sweet the silence of heaven's perfectly crafted stars, flawless, obedient, their rainbow of colors prism of the Creator's voice. Oh, how sweet the sound of heaven's light when it descends with redemption into this beautiful, brief life. Thank you.
Thank you, Gladys. And now, Pameletta with Tony Policiano afterward.
I'm Pamelita Jones, Ambassador of Peace, and I'd like to start off by showing you this picture, if you can see it.
Oh.
And the title of this poem is Thou Art Forever Adored. Downtrodden is my heart, Lord, still onward, onward, thou art forever adored. Many years I've strived, Lord, seemingly failed. Thou art forever adored. However saddened I've become, Lord, I shan't forget. Thou art forever adored. The dark one still hast lost, Lord, for ye art victorious. Thou art forever adored. Ye lift my life onward, Lord, for ye have taken over. Thou art forever adored. Continue guiding my heart, Lord, in helping others. Thou art forever adored. What seems tremendous pain, Lord, only ye have suffered. Thou art forever adored. I thank thee for thy will, Lord. Moveth me forward, forward. Thou art forever adored. Amen. I'm going to sign out because I'm not feeling very well, but I hope you all enjoyed the poem.
Bless you.
And thank you for having
Glad
me.
you made it, Pamela.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Yes.
It's nothing like us poets. We're a rare form.
Amen.
All right.
And Tony Policiano will be followed by Nina Yabel.
Great. Hi, everyone.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'm glad to be here at Poetry Street. This is awesome. I'd like to head out to Riverhead one of these weekends, be there in person. Thank you to Austin and Kathryn for beautiful readings. My poem is called Steps to Take or Not to Take When the Time Comes. Black or brown youth, be still if pulled over and told to step outside your car. Talk, but not with your hands. If a cop stops you for being you, at the end of the day, there are drills you can go through that prepare you only so far. Here's a tip. Cooperate. Do not let a foot step. Don't sway when made to stand in place. Try not to make a sudden anything. Be respectful in an obliging manner. Don't smoke. Or if an urge to hits, resist. I mean, don't resist and don't smoke and never spit. If your mouth's chewing, swallow the gum. Long as the gun's holstered, all's good. You got me? Stand steady as an oak. Look honest as the asphalt road. And if your throat's dry, don't pay it any mind. Let your conversation be humble as a leaking water pipe. Don't bumble. An explanation be calm. Let them know you don't carry, never carried. Got no reason to carry, just want to get to where you were going, home to family dinner, without being tased, beaten, and cuffed for running, which I'm telling you not to do, for fear of being shot dead for any of the not yet mentioned suspicions they think you possess. They don't know you don't possess. And then you're not holding a peace, just holding your peace. And it's supper time right around now for everyone, including the Lord at his last. And it's you and your skin serving up the wine and the bread and just not knowing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Our next reader, Nina Yabel, then we will go back to the room. And after that, we'll have Victor Colon.
Hi, thank you all for a beautiful afternoon of poetry on this rainy day. Thank you, Maggie and Susan, and wonderful poets, Austin and Kathryn. This is an old poem, April Again. It always comes back to April. Cherry blossoms drift through a cerulean sky, unfold here and there. Cygnets come of age and follow close, sail the lake. Lovers sift through petals, names upon their lips. Certain faces fill my memory. Caught in detail, I slip out of spring. No time for blossoms. Birds seem too loud. No time for the hot burst of magnolia. The dogwood crosses. Love took another path through withering daffodils, inside the decay of iris and lilac, uncoiled in that infinite space where you and I flowered, posed separately in April's long memory. Thank you.
Room.
Yes.
Okay. All righty, we have two more poets in the room, and we'll begin with Jen Sepp.
Thank you, Maggie. Really, thank you. Okay, so this is either a failed experiment or a work in progress. I started it this morning. Okay, and it's called Overheard at the Social Security Administration Office. You worked too much, says Mr. X. You went over. 1,400, she replies, glassy-eyed. That food, nothing. Nothing else, bills, nothing. 1,400, that's nothing. Replies X, if you make less, you can apply for SSI supplemental if you make less. Aloud to herself, she replies, less, less. It don't pay to work, she says to X. Says Miss Y through a clear barrier like prison. You keep it under 1,400 a month for 2 years. You don't get another work trial until another 2 years. On the phone, Miss Z says, saying the same to someone else. Next, a man, he comes in with nothing but a ripped piece of paper. He wears jeans and a tee, hard work in his eyes, tired in his body. I can't do it, he says, through his partition to Mr. Someone Else. My back, it hurts. I want to work, he says. I can't do it anymore. Climbing on the roof, my back, it hurts. Thing is, everyone wants to be able. No one wants to be disabled. Sometimes some people, for our own reasons, can't work full time. Miss XYZ, no, they say the facts with understanding, not accusing. Outside this office, people say lazy. People say scamming the system, stealing my hard-earned taxes, stealing from the government, but it's the fucked up system that tells people work less to receive a little more. It's the fucked up system which is the disincentive to success. Remember, Mr. X? 1,400 is your rent. If you work less, he said, then you can apply for a bit more aid. Remember? That's what they tell you. Make less than $1,400 per month. You'll be fine, though fine is not enough.
Thank you, Jen, and everybody. I am the last poet in the room who's reading today. And this poem is called Our Houses. I sit in meditation on the windy morning beach. The ocean curls, the inlet winks and shines with sunlight in the cheerful wake of small fishing vessels. I reflect on the millions of shell fragments that dot the sand, once part of an ill-fated mollusk's home, now scattered at random, maybe to be gathered up and crumbled for a necklace or a driveway. Who was it lived in there? It must hurt to have your home dashed on rocks by storms or seagulls or children. I like to think the clams and conch have souls we know octopi do, that after the crush, their energy disperses and seeks another incipient life form to enter, start again. Try to get it right this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. And now we're back on the Zoom with Victor Cologne, to be followed by Margareta Wall.
Thank you. I appreciate very much both of the features. That was wonderful. I actually pulled a poem out from one of the lines that you had, trying to learn how to sleep. So I pulled out a poem. It's called Deep and Foreboding. The prompt was write a poem about a fairy tale. And this is a homage to The Story of a Mother by Hans Christian Andersen. When pressing the bramble against your breast, a new flower grows as thorn pierces flesh. Warm in the bosom on a cold winter's night, you surrender your child and give up the fight. Postpartum blues from your veil to your shoes, sleep that eludes, confuses lies for the truths. Death steals your sunshine when you look away, lost in the night, 'twas the light of your day. You flee to the forest, deep and foreboding, the panic inside has you exploding. You sing to the trees every song that you know, cry your eyes out, just to get a good view of the show. When reaching the lake, you scream out at last, well, at least I can still smell the roses I've passed. Entering the greenhouse, you hear her heartbeat, your reborn child sprouting from the seed of deceit. Pondering death's bargain as you peer down the well. Which fate is worse, one cursed or cut short by the bell? Tearing out your hair and threatening destruction, but God merely laughs at your feeble distraction. He rips out the plants and moves them to Eden, returns you your eyes so that you can see him. Looking at last at each of their fate, you realize either choice is a trap, and you state, take my daughter now into your kingdom. Rather, I know her safe and saved than cast into oblivion. Do not listen to me when I ask against your will. What kind of God would have me swallow this poison pill? Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Our next poet is Margareta Wall, to be followed by Melissa Longo.
Thank you to our hosts and to our features today. My poem is called Wrong Number. Austin had read a poem about unknown caller, so this is Wrong Number. The red flashing light on my answering machine blinked. I had a message for Barbie doll. An older man's voice said, the stranger's request for a callback, how he misses her with no callback number. Sounding older than my dad, I wonder, is she blonde, having a toy figure body? Does she drive a pink Corvette, own a spacious camper, or a 3-story house with an elevator like my cousin's dolls did? The wrong caller travels me back to the 80s, where I dreamed as a kid I had Barbie's hair, her bust figure, and her cotton candy lifestyle. My Barbie had short hair and with a twin sister with long, because I loved The Parent Trap and wish I had a twin somewhere in the world I could meet at camp. to switch places with. I had a more Haley Mills resemblance than Barbie. My Barbies had friends and lived in a small house with their anatomically not incorrect Ken. Somehow they had kids, a dog, and worked jobs and didn't drive. Now my answering machine announces to my senior edition of Wrong Caller Ken, lets him know that his lady of plastic isn't here. This reminder, Barbie dolls just don't live here anymore.
Thank you, Margareta. Now Melissa Longo, followed by me.
Woo! Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all. It's been a long time. Thank you, everybody, for the wonderful work. I'm a poet and kalimba player, and I'm gonna share my work with you. This is called Love. Does not feel simple, but it is. Sending and receiving love is the most brilliant feeling ever. Times have been strange, hurtful, and sometimes dull, but don't let this stop you. And thus you fight for yourself, for the underdog, because love hasn't always been easy. It never is, but love is simple. When we cook, we don't always follow the recipe, especially when we nourish ourselves, as we make sure to time our meds with our meals. And remember that we already took our meds, repeat only daily, but not back to back, as the anxiety kicks in with the sugars combating for control. But when we live, when we plant, we sometimes forget they need to bloom, in tune to the songs that are in our heart, to the wind. Of ghosts of yesterdays and vanquishing footsteps, and we still have trials and tribulations of the past. But we will win. So let us love and live with no need to betray ourselves and our insecurities. Love does not feel simple, but it is. It is. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to read a poem that is not one of mine, but was written by someone who is a dear friend of Poetry Street, Maggie's sister, Anne Shelley, who wrote this beautiful poem, and I would like to read it in her memory. It's called The Turning. I had to stop fighting with the trees since I loved them so. I wanted them to stay in their warm summer dress, but only their solemn trunks remained the same. The fickle leaves trembled and grew and changed from tint to green, from green to brazen. This dazzling progression thrilled me so, but that last lustful thrust, a warning, because I knew what follows. For then they throw themselves upon the ground, gone from the sturdy home that reared them. I felt my friends betrayed me so. It was hard to learn about the times we call seasons, that beauty fully formed would never live forever. But I could not weep on each October. They did their best, the lovely trees. I need a longer season to forgive, that I will turn and join the leaves, that summer is for living things. Dear Anne, rest in peace. Thank you. And that is it from Zoomland.
Now you can watch your host melt down. Thank you, Susan. Thank you. Yes. My sister was a staunch supporter of Poetry Street, and she passed away this weekend. And a lot of people said, oh, you shouldn't do this. You should be with your family. She was my family, and you guys are my family. So I'm really very happy to be here today. And I'm very happy to host this venue and let's hear it one more time for our wonderful features. And for everybody who was part of the open mic, Melissa, it's so good to see you back. We got Melissa and Julie back. Everybody else, come back, come back, come back. Next month, it will be Claire and it will be Bill Batcher and surprise third feature. So thank you for a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, Kathryn and Austin, Claire, Susan, the library, and all of you. And get home safely in the rain. Thank you.